people today think brand is separate from demand generation. No. Brand drives demand. Content alone is not enough. Where do you place the content is also equally important.
There are a lot of senior marketers saying that we've been doing personalization for 10 years now. It doesn't really move the needle beyond a point, or there is nothing different other than speed.
Anybody who disputes that personalized content is not important, they must be having a lot of money to do a huge amount of events in the year to actually turn around that. But I think the world is definitely going towards one-to-one. We are moving into the world where AI will generate the content, human will assist. It's not human first, it's AI first. I don't think influencers are going away because today 74% of people don't trust what you as a company say.
Hey there, welcome to Marketing Mavericks with Indiefolio. Today we have Shuchi Sarkar with us, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at LTI Mindtree. We talked to Shuchi about her career, which spans from working with agencies to working on the consumer side and then to B2B. From leading a lot of functions in India to actually moving abroad and leading a lot of geographies there. Today she's a global marketing leader and we talked to her about this transition. We unpack B2B, extract a lot of insights and advice for agency owners and young marketers. Thanks a lot for your time, Shuchi, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Kavan.
You're joining us from California. This is one of our first podcasts where we are getting international guests. So I'm super excited. When you look at your career graph, a lot of young marketers in India would aspire to follow what you did, right? Work with global players, work in global markets, and then actually move abroad. I wanted to understand, when is it that you decided you want to build a career in marketing? Because if I'm not wrong, you studied economics in India.
So after I did my economics, I went to study for my MBA. To be honest, I remember my first marketing class. We used to have a prescribed text called Philip Kotler, who is, of course, very famous. The fact that you're the voice of the customer and understanding the 4 Ps and all of that, I so much fell in love with the subject that I totally knew that's what I wanted to do. I've always been a people person. What drew me to marketing was that it is finally all about people. It's all about the consumers. It's all about your customer, understanding those customer insights, what makes them tick, their challenges, their motivations, their behavior, where do they go, where do they read, where do they watch, etc. And the whole concept was not creative in the traditional creative sense, but marketing is ultimately all about creativity. It's about innovation. It's about people. It's about engaging your customers. And frankly, that's what drew me into the subject right from the time that I went to study my MBA.
People who are deciding if marketing is their career choice often have this dilemma about what marketing actually is, right? So if I'm, let's say, in my 12th grade, or I'm a young marketer doing MBA, who is marketing for? Is marketing for the creative brain or is it for the analytical brain?
I say marketing is for both. Marketing is an art as much as it's a science. And yes, today the science is very important, especially because you have to show your ROI, you have to show people what are the returns on what you're getting. And without understanding the science part of it, understanding the algorithms, understanding the data, you can't succeed in marketing in today's world, okay? But there are tools, so you don't have to be a mathematic wizard. You just have to have an analytical brain. In any case, whether you are left brain, right brain, if you want to do marketing, even if it was just the creative part of it, analytical has to be there. In the long run, the marketers who succeed are marketers who are not only creative and strong in execution and are data-driven, but marketers who are also strategic, who can think blue ocean strategy, who can find those white spaces where you should go, who can look at a problem and come up with 10 different ways of solving that problem and then possibly using data and insights to decide which is the best one. I remember one very famous person once coming and talking to us about creativity. And the one thing that he said, I will never forget, which is You can never bore your customer into watching something or reading something. At the end of the day, it has to resonate with the customer. That's what makes content compelling, finally, is that gut. And you just know when you look at something that this is going to work. But today, while your gut is important, the art is important, the science is equally important. So if you're a creative bent of mind, of course, marketing is a function. If you're analytical as well, you don't have to be somebody who's a mathematical wizard, but of course, having understanding of how do you problem solve is more important than pure mathematical knowledge.
Absolutely. I want to now talk about first jobs. When a marketer is trying to pick their first opportunity, there's a lot of advice going around that do a sales job, sweat under the sun, sell something, you will learn from your customer directly. A lot of people say go to the service side, you'll get cross industry exposure condensed into like 1 or 2 years. Could you give your opinion here on what should be the thought process to pick the first job? And if you could give your example on the early stints of your career.
I think more than whether you go do sales or you go do this or you go do that, it's important to understand where does your passion lie. You come to marketing only if you have a passion. I remember my first job, I started in Ogilvy advertising, and I remember the guy telling me that you'll either stay here for your life or you will leave in 6 months. And I didn't leave in 6 months, and marketing became my passion. I call myself a marketing nerd. Having said that, I don't think it's about your first job or second job. I think there are things that you should do when you want to grow in marketing, especially to grow up the corporate ladder. I think at some point doing a P&L, product marketing, category management, brand management, something like that, where you actually get to understand the business aspect is very important. Number one. Number two, it's great to have done sales or business development or being an account executive in an agency, because the selling and understanding how to influence customers, understanding their challenges, how do customers think, their decision-making process is always very good. I encourage people to do rotations everywhere. Go do operations for a while. Working in a region role is important. Working in a global role is important. I feel that when I came to a global role, because I had worked in a country, because I had worked in region, I had much more empathy for folks out there in the region and in the country, and I always got along much better with them because I understood their problems completely. I think what makes the difference is being able to talk business, being able to look at a decision from a business perspective. What is most gratifying is not only that a piece of content or communication or media wins an award, it's when it actually works in the marketplace. So it helps you grow the business or gain market share or increase profitability. That's when something has really worked.
Absolutely. Being a marketing leader is a lot about stakeholder management. Completely agree with that piece. One thing a lot of people in India want to do, right, which is move to a global role. I want to ask you from two angles. One is the grass always greener outside the country? Because India has seen some tremendous growth, but you continue to see breakthrough happening abroad. From that perspective, if I'm a marketer, I've spent a few years in India and I want to make that transition. Could you kind of share what's the best approach to go about it?
Great question. I get approached all the time. Can you help me find a job in the US or Singapore or wherever else it is? Unfortunately, times are different a bit now. Economies are more closed. People really question, especially when they bring talent into high cost areas compared to nations where it's more cheaper to have talent. Having said that, it may be that you might be in a global team, but you might not be sitting in the US or sitting in Europe or wherever it is today. Things have become so different in terms of being able to do remote work that people do build global teams by sitting all over the place, right? For me, why did I want this? I was happy in India. I was doing really well. For me, when I realized finally is that if you're in a US multinational and you really want to influence the strategy of the brand, the policy of the brand. If you really want to do that, you have to be in the headquarters of the brand. Now, remember that time the world didn't have Zooms and all of that. Okay. So it was also difficult to influence sitting in Singapore or sitting in India. For me, that's why I was very keen to first move to Asia Pacific and then be involved in regional decisions. What you need to do if you really want this is to grasp opportunities yourself. Nobody came and told me that, Shuchi, your next career is going to be to go work in Singapore and do this. No. I saw an opportunity. I wrote to the hiring manager. I presented my case, why I was the appropriate person. Then I went and spoke to my India boss and I engineered the whole move over. It was not somebody that gave me the opportunity. I took it because it was there and I put up my hand. And many times, especially as women leaders, we don't put up our hands. I think it's important to put up your hand. If there is an opportunity, make your own opportunities, grasp them and go after them. Having said that, let me tell you, India is a very exciting market in itself, especially for many businesses. The kind of work that we do, the kind of emotional work we do, the kind of brands that we build, the creativity, the marketing edge in India is no less than anywhere else in the world. And more brands have decentralized their marketing. They seek work from India. There are opportunities there for everybody to actually be part of the revolution in India. Everybody won't get jobs in Singapore and US. I think the things to do is, irrespective of where you're located, how do you really further the marketing agenda? How do you develop stuff that engages your customer, that's creative? How do you build enduring brands? How do you do, whether it's account-based marketing or in consumer influencer, this, that? And how can India be the leader in some of those innovations? Because we have some of the most creative and smart minds in the country.
This is so great. Like, I really love the whole engineering yourself for success part, because the more successful people I speak to, the more I realize that you have to carve out your own opportunity. And I think that's brilliant. However, Shuchi, would you say that a good way to actually do what you did is to work with a global brand in India first?
Yes, that is the start, because then it's much more easier to get the exposure. It's much more easier to be part of a global team, to show your value. So when you want to go, people are there to endorse you. The person who gave me that role in Singapore gave me that role in Singapore because she knew me and she'd seen my work. If I had worked in an Indian company alone, I may not have got that opportunity. Of course, there are exceptions, right? LTI Mindtree is an Indian company where I work currently. We do have people who are in US or Europe or whatever else it is, and they have come out of India. So it's not that you can't go global, but the chances are much higher if you join a global brand.
Another challenge a lot of marketing leaders or potential marketing leaders face is with managing growing teams. You've really grown in various roles over your career, and being a CMO now, hundreds of people you may be responsible for. In an environment where the team is rapidly growing, how do you still make sure that there is not ever too much process and there is individual freedom as well?
This question really depends on your own leadership style, firstly, and also depends upon the culture of the company. For example, in HP, everything was decentralized. It was very empowered. As long as you met the results, frankly, it was up to you what you really did and drove. Of course, within boundaries. Within those boundaries, really, you were encouraged to take risks and do innovation and localization, because especially countries like India, China, Japan, they're so different, and you need a localized approach for each one of them. For me, it's always a tough balance between empowerment and being able to drive a certain quality of work, especially when you're in the middle of a transformation. So I have led many transformations, bringing marketing from very old fashioned ways to new fashion, leading with content and data, teaching people how to build customer journeys and content journeys, and just all the new stuff that's happening around there. I work on three tenets, which is I want to build a culture of excellence. I always try and inspire people. It's not about processes. It's not about we add another layer of complication. It's about how do we collectively strive for excellence. And that means holding yourself to high standards as well as holding others to high standards. And second thing is with empowerment comes accountability. So for me, I go in, I set the vision, I explain, and with everybody's input, this is the strategy. Where I know people don't know, I help them learn. But the minute I feel that they've got it, I just step back from the process. Similarly, if you want empowerment, you have to take responsibility. And accountability is not only for self, it's also holding each other accountable. No matter whether you're peers or somebody reports to you. Those are the principles that are very important in building cohesive team cultures, which build authenticity, which build inspiration, which build the fact that tomorrow your team feels inspired to do something that would be really outstanding.
I saw this interview of Steve Jobs. He said that the best managers are actually the ones who are great individual contributors first, then they kind of are told to become a manager. I often feel those people have a problem, right? Which is when they get a team and when they don't have to do, when you're initially transitioning to be a leader, you feel like, this person's not getting it. I'm just going to do it myself because it'll be faster, better, and I know what I want, which is a very vicious circle because then you're really not scaling. How do you get out of that trap?
I think the important thing is to have a coaching mentality. Like, I know it's always easy to do it yourself, but you have to deliberately get out of that behavior. It was not something that came naturally to me. I had to work on being actively listening. I had to work on not always trying to multitask and do 10 things at one time, but really 100% being there for whatever task I'm doing. And also, rather than editing the slide myself, giving a person input and then forcing them to really get there. At some point, you draw the line and say, okay, I tried my best, but now I think you need to do this. Some occasions that happen, but those should be rare. Try and mentor rather than simply handing out what the answer is. I always tell the team, I'm not an ATM, the answer telly machine. I am a person who will help you find the answers yourself.
Awesome. It's easier said than done. It's a big reminder that hey, these are the important aspects if you really want to be a true leader. I want to now talk about B2B, right? Whenever people ask B2B versus B2C, I see like 99 people raising their hand for B2C and 1% raising their hand in B2B, at least in India. And I always feel it's a really exciting space. In fact, so much is happening in B2B. Actually, a lot of money is in B2B. But for some reason, I don't see a lot of excitement there. You said you worked with something like an Ogilvy. But then how did you make a transition to B2B where I know today, like you to maybe learn yourself? So could you tell a little bit about making a transition into becoming a B2B expert?
I did consumer marketing early part of my career. And to be honest, I love consumer marketing. It's the fun part. It's developing all the nice assets that you can see on the cable TV and the channel and the hoardings and the internet ads, consumers buying it. You see your brand in the store and everywhere else. So there is no doubt about it that it is a very fun part of marketing. But having said that, I think the biggest thing that B2B marketing provides you is to see actual results because it is so measurable, so driven, so automated in today's world that you can actually see direct impact of what you're doing. And that is why in B2B marketing, you're able to earn a seat at the business table, because in classic consumer companies, anyway, marketing is the leader on the business table. But in B2B marketing, you're now able to earn that business seat because of this. I'd done consumer for a while and I just felt I wanted to do something different, something that challenged me. And lucky for me, I got an opportunity within HP. Coming from my consumer background, I was able to bring a lot of difference. It doesn't matter whether you're marketing to a CMO, a CHRO, a CTO, CIO, CRO, Chief Product Officer, doesn't matter who you're marketing to, they're human beings at the end of the day. And they consume content in that manner. They have motivations, they have challenges. If you look around you, even in the B2B world, the brands that are most successful are the brands that have actually spoken or built relationships with the customers based on trust, based on assurance, based on innovation, based on the service they offer. It's ultimately about appealing to the human heart as much as you're talking to the head. Everybody needs those three logical reasons, but there's that little illogic that will always make you work for brands that have a purpose, or buy a brand that is doing good for the world, or whatever it is, that emotion that pulls you in. So for me, when I did that, I went and I was like, no, this is not the way we create. And I created for them, this was HP Storage. We created a very out there competitive campaign. We were, I think, 4 or 5% of market share against EMC, which was like, at that time, they were 24 or 24% market share. So if you're like a 4% against a 24% on a slim budget, you have to do something that's totally out there. And so we did, and I would not do it if I was the market leader, but we weren't. So we did some competitive advertising. We did some guerrilla marketing, appearing at EMC World and engaging their customers on their home ground. So it was a lot of guerrilla marketing, doing a lot of content, which was not just your standard ebook or brochure, but was like tying up with, of all things, puppet show called Glove and Boots, and using their followership, which was very tech nerds because they love such shows, to actually get on and do some content with them. And I have shuffled since then between B2B and B2C here and there. But I think that being able to do both of those different kinds of marketing actually enrich you as a marketer. So if you get the opportunity to go from a B2C to a B2B, or from a B2B to a B2C, always take it up, because it'll teach you something different.
B2B, firstly, is very sales driven, and usually they hire a marketing person to help them do marketing. I get a lot of clients with a very similar thing, saying, I'm a sales company, I want to do marketing, tell me what I should do. And they usually come saying, let's make an Instagram page. So can you tell a little bit about if I'm building a 0 to 1 function of marketing in B2B, what can be like a flywheel for an organization?
So first of all, you have to do everything. It's not mutually exclusive. Now, in some companies, they believe in doing more events because they are higher value items and they're long sales funnel, and the customer expects to see a demo. He expects to see the salesperson. He expects to see stuff at the event, make comparisons between different brands. So if you're selling a high value product, if your sales cycle is really that long and you have things to demo, definitely you can't do without events. Okay. In such companies, events would be larger. But I think that performance marketing gives you wider reach. It gives you scale. So if you're just starting off, you have very limited money. The first thing to do is to fix your digital touch points, your website, your social channels, all of that. But most importantly, what is critical and key in marketing today is content. Now, that content can be placed on your digital channels, that content can be in your events, that content can be part of an email campaign, the content can be a content syndication campaign, doesn't matter. But ultimately, What is important is content, and where do you place the content? Content alone is not enough. Where do you place the content is also equally important. And many people today think, oh, brand is separate from demand generation. No, brand drives demand, especially as the buying committee becomes larger and the sales funnel becomes longer. So I think it's really important to first, as a any B2B startup, to understand what is your brand, who are you, and what do you stand for. Today's world is becoming different with AI. Today, with AI, hyper personalization is becoming important. And that's just the way the customer expects to see the content. So, investing in automation is a really important part for any B2B so that you can personalize the content. And anybody who disputes that personalized content is not important, I think that they must be having a lot of money to do a huge amount of events in the year to be able to actually turn around that. But otherwise, you absolutely need to invest in hyper personalization. Customers look for what they look at that point. If you can serve them up personalized content that matches what they're looking for, you have a win, and you can then take the customer forward into the next stage of their journey. And today, I think you just need to read the signals to see where the customer has interacted with you at what touch points, and then at some appropriate point hand over the lead to the sales guy. Because I think some of the traditional ways that we have looked at B2B is also changing.
I was about to ask you on AI and personalization. There are a lot of senior marketers saying that we've been doing personalization for 10 years now. It doesn't really move the needle beyond a point, or there is nothing different other than speed. It's faster and cheaper. Other people are saying that no, the difference with AI is 1:1 personalization. To which people say, hey, 1:1 is not that needle moving. Cohorting to maybe 8-9 cohorts and then doing personalization there is as good as 1:1. Could you kind of share a little bit about your approach to personalization? Do we have to move towards 1:1?
Hyper personalization is going to become a reality. Now, whether that hyper personalization means it's 1:1 or it's 1:4, I think as marketers, we will evolve that and the answers will start coming through very soon. I think that automation today has made it possible in a speedy and cost effective manner to personalize the content, whether it's 1:1 or 1:3 or 1:4. But I think the world is definitely going towards 1:1. People are going to expect that. I see that in my own behavior. When I'm searching for something, I am looking for an answer that completely, in a short time, answers the question that's in my head. So I think that 1:1 will happen eventually. Are we at that stage right now? Maybe we can still do 1:3, 1:4, 1:8, whatever it is. But that's where we are going to, because AI is going to make that possible. And as that possibility happens, people's expectations will change.
Absolutely. I think very well put. We spoke a lot about content, and at IndieFolio, we are a network of freelancers, agency owners in the creative space, and we create content for a lot of B2B companies, B2C companies. But with AI, with the way the world's changing, it's been pretty nail biting for a lot of creators today. Do you feel with the advent of AI, creative production will completely go away? Do you think creative people will not really be required? Or do you feel you'll expect creative people to leverage AI and continue to outsource work to them? You're also at the helm of LTI Mindtree. So even generally, the nature of creative outsourcing is something I was very curious to get a perspective on.
Great question, Kavan. So I feel that, first of all, I believe that the earlier era was human generated the content, AI assisted. I think we're moving into the world where AI will generate the content, human will assist. So to me, that is the fundamental thing that is going to change. Okay, I tell my team that the first thing now is not for you to write a draft. The first thing is get a draft from AI and then you edit it. So it's not human first, it's AI first, number one. Number two, I think what is critical that is going to happen is creative ideas and innovation. There will always be a place for that. As marketers, you are probably a little bit more, you will get into the process of creating the content a lot more because it's become easy. But I still think that those big ideas, that really creative campaign, that inspiration brand manifesto, some of those things will still very much come from people who are not marketers. I don't think influencers are going away. More and more, they're going to become important because today, 74% of people don't trust what you as a company say. And I hope I'm right and I'm not proved wrong. I certainly still believe that this world needs brands that have emotion, that can be built long term, that have that premium that they can drive as well. And so I hope that those brands continue. And I feel those brands will always require that big idea, that big creative, that frankly, at least in the next 4 or 5 years, I don't see any AI doing it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think we have to wait and watch.
Yeah.
This is my theory. I don't know. Absolutely. I may be wrong.
I mean, things are changing so fast, I think even a 5-year roadmap seems hard. As a parting thought, I would love to ask you a question on behalf of the young marketeer. They want to be a CMO one day. They're probably in their early 20s. Any advice as a parting thought for them which they should follow to become a marketing leader one day?
The biggest thing for me is to have self-belief and to have courage and to be brave. And why these are important is because only when you have self-belief can you march towards something. And so have that self-belief that this is something that you can do. Frankly, it's not rocket science and you can get there is number one. The second thing is to have the courage to take those risks, to go after those things that really make a difference, because I feel that enough marketers don't have a voice in, and they tend to get treated as a service. Whereas I feel you need to get a seat on the business table and speak up. Apart from constantly learning the art and the science and keeping your tools edgy and making sure you are relevant and you're reading and you're observing and you're seeing the best practices, which I think everybody does. My overarching thing is have self-belief, be confident, be passionate, and go after your dreams and be brave.
Fantastic. I think really, really actionable advice towards the end there. Thank you so much, Shuchi. It was a pleasure to host you. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. Thank you, Kavan, for having me. And it was really awesome. I'm on LinkedIn. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to share my LinkedIn. I'm happy to have answer any questions later. But thank you. I really appreciate the conversation.
Awesome. It was a pleasure. And for everybody who's tuned along, thank you so much. If you'd like to hear another marketing leader very soon, please like, share, and subscribe. Bye-bye.